James Freeman joins me now. Great to see you, James. Good morning.
You too, Ash. Thanks.
So, based on what Lauren just said, which battleground states are must-wins for Trump?
Well, I think North Carolina in that list, and I would think he needs Georgia as well. Depends a bit on Midwest states that are also fairly close. But I think you're looking at a coin flip election right now. Wow. And you look across the Midwest, and you mentioned Pennsylvania. I think there is still probably some regret in the Democratic camp that Kamala Harris did not pick the popular governor there. This is going to be a difficult must-win state for her, and probably would be a lot easier if she had gone the moderate route.
Yeah. James, I want you to take a look at some of the headlines that came out after the debate on Tuesday. It doesn't seem like voters were too convinced of Harris's performance. Look, and in particular, the undecided voters who were not convinced, according to those headlines. How does Trump convince undecided voters?
I think it was a kind of a strange debate. I think Kamala Harris really outperformed in the sense that I don't think people expected her to be that aggressive a debater. But when you look at the content, I also don't think there are many independent voters who were saying, I'm looking for someone who can be just as rude or even more insulting than Trump. Typically, these are people who think the Trump years were pretty good. Economy was good. We had relative price stability, but they don't like his tone. They don't like a lot of the chaos that comes with him. I don't think Harris made a case on policy. You go through those questions from the moderators. She didn't answer one of them, whether the first four questions put to her, whether it was about why did you not get rid of Trump's tariffs if they're so bad, or why did you wait until 6 months before the election to enforce the border. There were no answers. So I think she's still got to make the case on how she can govern this country as opposed to trolling Trump.
Yeah, she got a free pass on a lot of very key issues. And so with that in mind, James, should Trump agree to a second debate?
I would say yes. I would say they both should. This is a coin flip. So no one has closed the deal with voters. That's obvious when you look at these polls in swing states. I'd say it's anybody's game right now, and anybody who doesn't want to debate, I would think that would say something to the electorate, and it wouldn't be good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the critical points for Trump, would you not agree? The economy, inflation for sure, and immigration. He should be able to really hammer away at the Biden-Harris, and in particular Harris now, and their policies, failed policies, right?
And that's where I would agree those are the key issues. I think that's also where Harris needs to make a better case. She basically has adopted or continued to embrace the Biden myth, which is that they inherited a mess from Trump. And it's just not true. The economy was growing much faster that quarter when they took office than it is now. Obviously, inflation much lower. So she needs an acknowledgement of mistakes, I would guess, and a path forward before voters would have any reason to think that the next 4 years will be any different than the last 3.5.
And maybe some fact checks from moderators who apparently were only going to do that for the other candidate. But anyway, James, thank you so much.
Thanks,
James Freeman, great stuff as always. Good to see you.